Due Diligent Canine, and in this video I'm going to show you how to prove basic behaviors. What I mean by that is ensuring that your dog is properly responding to voice commands for simple behaviors like sit, down, stay, stand, and not relying on your physical body posture or body language cues. So obviously your dog will need to know each of the behaviors that I mentioned or that you want to prove. So those simple positional changes being sit, down, and stand. I use German commands for those, but again, like I said in lots of videos, you use English, Portuguese, Dutch, whatever you want. The language doesn't matter. So, but the dog will need to learn those behaviors before you start to proof them. And what I mean by proofing them is that the dog isn't relying on my physical body for those cues. And there's some different ways that we can go about this. We can change or limit the dog's physical surroundings or environment, or we can change and manipulate our physical presence and presentation. So, I've got some props in the background here, and I'll talk about this first and then I'll show it. When we manipulate the dog's environment, that is putting some sort of barrier around them, something to give them a physical mark other than our bodies for the behavior that we want. So one example would be when you want a dog to lay down, you don't want them to creep forward, okay? The reasons are pretty simple. When you tell your dog to down, you want them to like submit or be under control of their body in that situation. You don't want them to get the satisfaction of like ooching forward towards something that you're probably wanting them to stay away from or not interact with, right? That's why you teach your dogs a down. So when we go into position changes, then you don't want the dog to sit and down and stand and down, and they're coming forward and forward and forward. So a very simple way to show this would be to put like a broomstick or something down on the ground that kind of marks the line where you don't want the dog to cross. Now, in my experience, I feel like that is a better reminder for me than it is for the dog. So it does give a clear barrier for me to say, yes, the dog stayed behind the broomstick, gets his reward, or no, the dog did not stay behind the broomstick. Even though they may have performed the sit or down behavior, they do not get a reward. So I found that helpful for me, but I found it not as easy for the dog to learn. So I try to change the surface that my dog is standing on, and I found that to be very helpful. There are lots of ways to do this. I've got a half pallet here that's essentially serving the same function as a raised bed or a cot that you might already have for your dog. There are lots of brands and varieties out there. A simple half pallet does the same thing. If you've got maybe 3 or 4 steps to your back porch or your front door, this is another really good way to create a barrier for the dog. I've put my dog on tables to test this, like picnic tables at a park, in the bed of my truck. This is another really good way to signal to the dog that it physically cannot cross that threshold and successfully perform the behavior that you're asking. So with the broomstick example, if the dog steps over the broomstick, nothing bad really happens other than it doesn't get its reward. However, if you have a raised platform here, there's a little clearer picture where the dog knows it or will figure out that, okay, it's not as simple as stepping forward because I don't want to fall. If you would amplify this to several pallets stacked on top of each other, or a picnic table or the bed of a truck, then the dog has an even clearer picture of like, oh, I cannot go forward because, well, I'll fall on my face, or I'll have to jump down. So when you do lots and lots of repetitions of that, then the dog starts to develop the behavior pattern that sit means sit back. Down means lay down, drop my elbows down behind me rather than creep forward and lay down. Okay? So let's look at that with the dog then. Place. Place. Yes. Okay. So I can give my dog, once he's on the platform, oh, place. Move it. Give him my command to, let's say, sits. Good. And then I want to start to work on my changes of behavior here. Check. That was pretty good. You can see that he's a little more forward than before. Although when he started, he wasn't completely at the front of the pallet yet. So it really doesn't demonstrate the punchline of this training principle. Check. Now he's getting to the front. Seats. Good. Flats. Now he has to back his butt up. Yes. So you can see really clearly there that the dog was physically not able to come forward without coming off of the platform. I'll do that again. Nice. Good. Stand on the other side maybe. Seats. Good. Steh. Platz. Seats. Steh. Seats. Steh. Yes. Okay. So in all those examples, you can see the dog's feet came to the front of the platform, but he did not come off of it, because that physical barrier was much more clear than just like a leash or a broomstick or something laying on the ground. So that is proofing the behavior changes, but what if you want to improve just the behavior itself? This is the second part that I talked about, manipulating my body then, and making sure that I'm not giving physical hand gestures. Again, there's nothing wrong with teaching your dog to obey hand gestures. And in fact, that can be really helpful because dogs are so intuitive to our body language rather than the vocal words that we use. But, and the purpose of this video, or for the purpose of this video, I'm showing how to make sure that your dog is listening to that verbal command. And so we're really going to emphasize taking away those physical commands then. So, what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to have to move my body around. So if every time I call my dog, I make a gesture like this for them to come to me and come in this sort of runway, that's really helpful. But I don't always want to have to do that. I want my dog to just come to me. So I can do things like put my hands behind my back. Come. Yes. I can face the other direction. Place. Seats. Good. Come. Oh, nope. He came to a heel, which is not quite what I wanted. Come. Yes. Close enough, although he didn't come quite around. There's someone walking by outside. Place. Try one more time here. Good. Come. See if he can auto adjust. Yes. There we go. So I waited for him to correct himself, and he did just fine. Right? Lots. You can do this with any behavior that you want. The recall was the example there. I've done this with healing. It can be a really fun way to, well, one, it builds confidence in the commands, but it can be really fun if you feel like you're kind of hitting a plateau in your training, just to change up things. You can really get silly, really get fun with it. I've posted compilations of this on Instagram. But doing things like recalling your dog while you're on your knees, you're laying on your belly, laying on your back, standing on your head. Forrest Mickey has a video out where he's doing just that. It's all kinds of ridiculous things, but it can be super fun. So let's look at some of that stuff. Seats. Good. Steh. Good. Putz. Good. Steh. Oh. Steh. Yes. Seats. Good. Steh. No. Steh. Steh. Platz. Good. Steh. No. Steh. 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 Yes. Seats. Good. Come. Yes. Platz. Good. Fuß. Fuß. Yes. Fuß. Seats. Well, sit. Good. Come. Yes. Steh. Steh. Yes. Platz. Platz. Yes. Seats. No. Sit. No. Sit. Yes.